What is good, Trading Tribe? All right, let's just jump right into it. Um, just to let you know, so I will be live streaming tomorrow, but I will not be trading until I'm gonna see what happens for Friday, January 2nd. Um, I think my hesitancy is if it's gonna be a half day. Then I'm definitely not going to trade it. I'll just wait until Monday the 5th. And so that's the only hesitation I have between deciding if I'm going to trade the 2nd of January versus January 5th. Okay. So this morning was interesting, and I think part of the reason, like, there's so many things to love about post market analysis, but I think one of the things I want to do next year is watch this video just to give myself a little bit of a reminder of what we have going into 2023 on December 23rd, which I've already looked at the calendar for next year. So the 23rd is going to fall on a Wednesday. Um, And so, which is not bad at all, actually, too, because you'll get a full, this year, the 25th, it's on a Tuesday. So that's not bad at all. So, two interesting plays, things played out today. I'm going to make it short, sweet, and concise. So, at market open, there was a flicker of a internal breakout to the upside. And one of the things that I want to mm, reinforce as a positive habit is to wait until the candle closes and that internal breakout to then remain. And so what happened is it flickered, and I went ahead and I placed a trade for a $50 contract. And I did that, I want to say, before the candle closed because I remember price came all the way down here. And I was like, okay, so, we can, two things that happened at that point. We had a flickering of the internal breakout, um, but it hadn't remained solid. So it was down here. And then the other thing was, I could have waited because one thing IWM is going to do is it's going to give you a couple of chances um, to hit your take profit level. So, or to at least fill the contract. So I remember with today, what happened too was at this point we still hadn't. I felt like I felt comfortable. Um, I don't know. Something just told me, but it is what it is. I've watched IWM enough to kind of get a little bit of a sense for it. So I knew that when it came to here, that's around the time that the internal breakout had started to flicker. But I said, you know what? Um, at this point, it still hadn't popped up or showed solid. And so I said, you know what? Let me set my take profit level for the contract at $65. Kid you guys not, if you guys can go back and watch the live, it I watched the contract go to $65. It hit two times and then rejected. And then I think I held a little bit more. I held right here. It came back up. So it's like almost like a 12 minutes I was holding it. It came back to like 63. So this time it didn't quite hit 65 right here because there was a little bit of theta decay. And then it just came down and I got out like right around here with like a $3 loss on a $50 contract, right? So that was very interesting, and it was interesting. Like I just really like how far I've come in terms of like my nervous system too. So, just kind of a little bit ticked with Robinhood not filling my order. I want to specify too. When I put the order in here, I put my contract for $50. It came down and picked up my contract, so that was good. But I also, as soon as I put my contract here, it got filled. I put in the $65 contract, so it's not like Robinhood didn't know that my order had already been put in. It's not like I waited until it reached here and then it swiped up and waited for it to fill my order, right? So that was super frustrating, and like I said, I got out with a negative $3 loss, which one of the quotes that I mentioned in that podcast was, I mean, in that live was, um let's just try to focus on having small losses, break even, small wins, and big wins, right? So just trying to practice risk management. I think that again, just super proud of myself. I felt like, because of what I had seen in terms of what it did with the $65 thing here, I thought the possibility of it retracing and going back up once it kind of like started to come down here and I think opened below. Um, I got out for a very small loss. Yeah, I think there was like a fair value gap in here or something, and I was like, oh, well, I'm not holding on to that. I don't want to hold on and see, you know, what happens. And then we waited, and I want to say, was it around? I want to say it was like around 7:15, but we got another internal breakout to the downside. And so with that one, I'm trying to remember what. Oh, I could see that it wasn't gonna give me a $50 contract fail, so I jumped in. I can tell you what price I got in at. Let me see. Where's my little Bruno? He's so fussy. All right, so, and this, I really like this too because I had just two trades. So it's like I have more confidence. I'm taking less trades and I'm taking better quality trades. So my second trade, oh, I did. Good girl. All right, yeah. Second trade, I got into a contract for $50. Oh, I remember what happened now. So when the internal breakout to the downside came out, popped up, I looked at the contract prices, and the contract was already at $51. So I was like, oh, okay, let's do it. So and it was at the money, because usually it's like it'll be like $1 to $2 out from out of the money, which is okay. Um, and so what happened is, um, there was a little bit of a pullback. There was let me see what happened here. I'm trying to remember what happened, but there was another. I think there was like another, um, what you call it? Sorry, guys, I'm really tired. There was like you see how you have these order blocks right here? So there was like a line right here. And I was holding, I remember price went to $70 and it started to reverse really quickly. So I was trying to hold, but I was like, no, it's strong enough and we're close to this take profit level or call level that it might just bounce, ricochet off of this. And so I closed out my like it skyrocketed up. So I got out of my contract at $63 versus the 70. As soon as I took my profit, it came back down and hit $70, and then came back down to $80. But then what was so interesting is I think here it came here, and and hit $80. And then what was so interesting is I wasn't even watching for this order block, and there was a gap right below, but it was a 15-minute gap. And I know I wasn't the only one that was anticipating that gap being filled. IWM does like to fill gaps, but it has a much better chance of filling it if it's a 1 hour gap. And what will end up happening too is sometimes if you don't get the internal breakout right away, usually later in the day, like maybe 8-ish, it will try to come back down and fill it. But later in the day, I've seen it do it both sides where it will do it at the top of the hour when we market open, but the last two 1 hour gap fills, we came back and and filled it later in the day. So, and then what was interesting about this is literally cannot make this stuff up if you watch the replay. And it won't take you that long. Like, it's good for you guys, like, if you're going to be bored, just to watch it because you don't even have to watch the full 1 hour. I usually head out like 7:30 to go to work myself. So, if you watch the first 1 hour of me just talking through what I'm seeing, it will help you have more confidence to see it for yourself. But right below here was where the gap and I decided to just go ahead and delete it. And moving forward, I will not put the 15-minute gap on there because at that point it's just noise. IWM doesn't like to fill 15-minute gaps. It likes if it shows up on the 15-minute and the 1 hour, then that's like higher probability. We're talking about like a B plus A minus setup compared to like the 15-minute by itself is just poo poo, right? Literally came down to where the gap was. It was like I in the live, literally 1 second, like 1 second, 1 cent from where that 15-minute gap was. And the way it just reversed so quickly, it opened here and just started to skyrocket. And that's when I was like, you know what? I'm okay with my small win that I had here because I knew that when it hits a certain level, I don't want to, give up all of my profit. Let me take a little bit of small profit. And so the other thing that was so interesting is that when this internal breakout, it was just somewhere over here, popped up, it did say solid. The candle had closed, and it gave me more confidence to hold the trade for longer. But I think what the other thing I was trying to watch for was um, if it was going to give a one-to-one return, right? So if you're buying a contract for $50, then that means that your take profit is going to be $1, right? Or when you reach $100, the contract value reaches $100, right? Or yeah, you get what I'm saying. So you buy it for 50 and you sell it at one. This little sucker came right here. I don't know if you can see that wick. Came to $90 and it did not even come back and even touch or anything. Came to $90. So it didn't even give a one-to-one return. And then just skyrocketed like nobody's. It moved way faster than when it had bounced off of this internal breakout. Not internal, out of this order block that was up here. Just diabolical. And then the other interesting thing that I was paying attention to as how much time am I on here? Because I want to keep this at 10 minutes. Okay, we're at 14 minutes, which is okay because that's fine. The other thing that was important, so, little other small things too. Price came up and filled this VWAP gap right here. And then we kind of hovered around a little bit in between this VWAP gap. And we just never really got quite to the top of, because I was kind of hoping that it would kind of just push to fill this little gap right here, this VWAP gap. But we filled this one. The other thing was, I kind of called it too. Like sometimes I scare myself, but once I started posting my Instagram videos, like where my levels were marked, I started to get like shooketh. And so now I'm starting to verbally call them out. And I mean, you don't gotta call me Nostradamus or anything like that, but I remember I said, um, when because the internal breakout to the downside was somewhere up here, and then this larger one popped up, and I said, you guys, that's that's different than the internal breakout that we saw before, because I was like, that's giving more liquidity. And I was like, you really don't want to trade in here. And so I remember that happened like right around here, price came up. And it's like, I was like, I know it looks like it's moving, but you're actually getting your contract eight and up, like shoot up. So price was, yes, it did skyrocket a lot up here. It opened off of this pivot. Another thing I was hoping for too was that we would go from pivot level to pivot level. So I was kind of just cautiously watching my trade, hoping that it would kind of come towards here. But I think that, I think of all the players. So there's people who play daily pivots from level to level, and they do come in at key levels, but there's not enough of them playing that strategy to push us from level to level, if that kind of makes sense. The internal breakout one is the one where there's more players involved in that, and they try to go for their one-to-one return at a minimum, right? So we came up here, and so sure enough, it's like you see this upward progress. You open above here, and then it just chews up all of your progress that you had made here, you know, and then continues to flip up to the upside. Highly doubt you would have gotten a 20% move, because just even from here, from like, yeah, from like here to here was just barely 30% move, right? So one of the things I said is like, be careful, you guys, because even though we have this internal breakout, and then this came up later in the game, I was like, what's gonna happen is you're gonna have another, like, I want to say like this is not an internal breakout though. This is something else. I don't know really what it is. I just know that it pops up, and I just kind of know to stay away with it, stay away from it. I don't trade this zone. This one happens to overlap with the internal breakout that we had this morning. IDK. But so you would have gotten here, and then you would have seen this, and then now at that point, like if you weren't already out and you hadn't already jumped into four trades or gotten stopped out, because this opened below the fast EMA. So if you were in an upward trend, it would have gone up a little bit more, not quite giving you the return that you're looking for, and then it would have brought you below this fast EMA. And then if you jump into the downside, you would have bounced off of this pivot level, you know, came back to this pre-existing call level, and then this one popped up again, and it was just chopping and screwing the contracts. I did happen to take a peek at the contracts at 8:30, and I could see that we were below the fast DMA. Um, you know, what time is this? Because I just want to pay attention. It's 8:24. That would be good to know. We had a little bit of tweezer talks right here. But usually, like I said, like usually by the time I'm at work, I just don't really recommend that you stay in there. So then you have gotten out right here when price opened above um, the fast CMA. So that concludes our the two trades that we could have taken for today. Um, At some point, I'm gonna start scaling and stuff. I'm not gonna lie, I feel like a little bit worried about, Robinhood not filling my contracts. I noticed that it was more likely to fill my contracts at 10%, even though like there's a bigger move that can happen. And a part of it, like I beat myself up for timing, but I'm just gonna have to learn to get better at my entries, better at my execution, and just get my own rhythm so that it's like how do you say, it's not, regardless of what is going on with Robinhood, I'm gonna still get my leg back, right? Um, yeah, and I think for as long as I've been, talking this out live, I want my trading community to be done trading 8:30, 8:30, 8:30. We clock out, babe. Like, if we're not already out of our trade, we just need to be out. You know, very few times. Look at this, exactly 8:30. They were like, "Oh, we're gonna push it down a little bit more. See ya," and they were out. And then from here, you just kind of went into a range. And at this point, volume is, has fallen, and the candles are much smaller. Very little action. It's like you make all this progress and then get chewed out. Then you hover around here for a little bit, and then you're opening above, then you're opening below. You know, it's not the funnest price action to trade. But yeah, and that's it. So, like I said, I will stream it tomorrow. But I don't see myself taking trades tomorrow. Tomorrow it's gonna be a half day, so I just don't really want to risk getting caught in something that is not gonna move as much as I really want or need it to. I think it was Thanksgiving, the day before Thanksgiving. I didn't realize it was like a 2 hour day. So um the market closed like Pacific Standard Time from 6:30 to 10, and it might have even been 8 o'clock, and it was crazy. Like, the trade was an immaculate trade, but the volume was so low, and I was just like, "What is going on?" And then that's when I figured out, oh snap, So I just don't want to get caught in that again. And then they say notoriously last week of December is not good. I will still live stream it. I'm just curious to see how it plays out. And I'm not sure if, again, it has to do with people's strategy where, um, if they're looking for their price action to be more bullish. Whereas if you're comfortable taking puts and that's what's happening. But I will check to see if there's like liquidity on the 1 hour time frame that last week in December. And at that point, I'll be like, yeah, maybe just help caution someone like, do not trade, just wait. And then, yeah, we'll just play it by ear. I did finish my week green and in between Monday and today, Tuesday's trades. So I kind of want to just finish on that note going into 2026. Two back to back green days. I think four trades in total. Um, no, Monday, if I'm not mistaken, I think I took one trade, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, it could have been, it wasn't more than four trades. So, all right, you guys, I'm tired. I'm going to go to bed. Um, I won't be able to sleep in because I have to be on the live with you guys, but um, I am going to be planning a Discord. I'm going to be working on that during my Christmas break. So I'm just going to play around with the logistics and see, get that set up because It's a little bit difficult to do when I come home from work. I'm tired and stuff like that. But if I can set that up over the weekend, Christmas break, we will have a Discord group. And at some point, I'm going to, um, I don't know, figure out what to live stream. Or what I will do is I will still live stream. You'll be able to see my screen, and or I'll be able to transition over to the multi-time frame analysis screen as well too. But I will do voice on the Discord, and then people on YouTube are just gonna have to try to figure out why I'm moving the screen around or pointing at certain things, and if they want to hear me provide my in-depth rationale for why I'm getting in and out of the trades or key levels and how to trade them and stuff like that, then and I mean another thing too is like I hope you guys can take advantage of these too, but we have these alerts that come up on the side. I might reduce them because the truth of the matter is, like, I remember when I first started, I would be looking at these and I also had the sound alerts going off and it would just have me on edge. So I took the sound off and I rarely look over here now. Very, very rarely, you know. Um, but like like this is helpful because I know, okay, if we have a sell, we're gonna come back and attempt to sell, push back to the downside. Or I really like the bullish engulfing ones, the 1 day order block ones. Those are good to just kind of remind me to look for that, that type of play. But yeah, I think I can go through and just remove some of these things. So this was 6:30. Bearish internal all the way with that. So that was 6:30, and then we had 7:40. Okay, you guys. So those are the plans. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.